So here we go, a second lesson related to queuing up visual clues, ideas that will help students more closely pay attention to Hebrew print, to Hebrew words. Teaching students how to slice Hebrew words is a great way to help them focus on the micro, the letters and vowel signs. Students who slice will be able to read words a bit easier because they are segmenting the words into smaller parts. In this video, you will learn a way to help children slice words down to size. Note that the Hebrew word on this page, lechalek, means to slice or divide something into segments. Now, you know that some bread slices are thicker than others, especially when someone cuts by hand with a knife. The same thing happens when we slice, or lechalek, Hebrew words. Some word segments will be thicker than others. Our goal in slicing is to cut the word down to size to help students see the smaller elements in a word, the letters and vowel signs. That will help with pronunciation. A slice or a segment is chelek. The plural is chelakim. So number one, the first rule of cutting Hebrew words down to size is that one vowel sign is needed in each chelek. What you see here are all vowel signs. Before we continue, can you figure out which dots and dashes are missing from this list? If it's not in this picture, it is not a vowel sign. I'll explain that in just a moment. The word lakum has two vowel signs and therefore will be divided into two chalakim. Number two, the next thing you need to know is that a shava is not a vowel sign. It does not denote a separate chelek. The letter above will somehow be connected to a nearby letter with a vowel sign. In reality, historically, a shava was originally placed under words to help the reader know not to look for a vowel sign. This is not a chelek. It is too small to be by itself. Take a look at Shema. How many vowel signs do you see? There's one. The patach. One vowel sign, one chelek. One. We don't read this Shema. We read it Shema. So we have two rules in play right now. Count the vowel signs, but do not count any shava that you see. Each of these is a chataf. Starting from the right, a chataf kamatz, a chataf patach, and a chataf segol. These are shorter vowels than the kamatz, patach, and segol. They are related to a shava, so guess what? A chataf does not count as a vowel sign when you're looking at chalakim. How many chalakim are in this word? Remember to count the vowel signs. One vowel sign will be one chelek, and ignore any shava or chataf. Pause this video while you think and count. There are three vowel signs. One, 2, 3. So there are three chalakim. Note that dividing words down into chalakim does help with pronunciation. Americans who are decoding often say avo, te, nu. A more authentic accent would say avotenu. And if you think about it, it's avo, te, nu. That's how it divides into the chalakim. So let's practice. So I want you to take a look at each of these, pause the video, and figure out how many chalakim there are in each word. Remember, you're counting the full vowel signs. Okay, so let's check your answers and start on the far right with me. One vowel sign under the mem, one chelik. In nedar, there are two vowel signs, one under the nun and one under the daled. Therefore, there are two chelakim. In tehilot, we don't count the shva. We count the chirik, which is under the hay, and the cholam chaser, which is next to the lamed. Two chelakim. And when we read it, we would read it tehilot. And you can see how it plays out in the second line too. So you might be wondering why we just don't call the chelakim syllables and count a shava as one syllable if we give it some voice as in tehilot. I'm going to tell you it's just the way it is. If we were talking about Hebrew syllables, which we're not, then we would still say that each syllable needs a vowel sign and that a shava and a chataf don't count. That's the way it is in Hebrew. But here we are talking about finding each chelek, each segment that helps children pay attention to the micro parts of a word and attain a more natural cadence when they read. So hold on, let's see if you can work this out. This is a tough one. It stops kids, maybe some adults, in their tracks because it has 10 characters. At first glance, it looks like it could have, I don't know, a billion syllables, but pause the video and count the vowel signs. Again, think about pronunciation. Bamish, mero, te, hem. I'm reading each of the chalakim, each of the segments. B'mishmaro tehem is how we read that when we're reading it fluently or talking about the word b'mishmaro tehem, as compared to, again, a kid going b'mishmaro. It forces them, if you work with chalakim, to focus on each segment and say that together fluently enough. So, how can you help students learn to divide Hebrew words into chalakim? So, first you have to explain what you now have learned about Hebrew chalakim. And I do want to say to the side, this is a word that I chose, Nechama Skolnick Moskowitz, for Onward Hebrew. There's no formal grammatical principle called chalakim. There are syllables, but that seems to confuse children because the way you divide words into syllable at its foundation is different from how we talk about syllables in Hebrew. So first you have to explain what you've now learned about chalakim. Each vowel sign indicates a syllable. A shava doesn't count as a vowel sign, and a chataf does not count as a vowel sign. So then you're going to divide students into small groups and share a word for them to analyze. You're going to ask them, how many chalakim do you see here? Let's say you gave them lefanecha. When a group has completed its counting, a representative comes, writes their answer on the board, 3, 4, whatever they think it is. And if everything turned out the same, you're ready to go on. But if not, ask groups to explain their answers, whether or not they're right or wrong. Lefanecha has 3 vowel signs. What's under the fe, what's under the nun, and what's under the chaf sofit. Lefanecha. So there are 3 chalakim in this particular word. If you need to, take the group through all 3 rules again, with everyone coming to agreement on the correct answer. Repeat this with one other word that everyone works on in their small groups. Then give each group a set of identical words cut into cards. It's a great job for madrichim to do all that cutting. You're going to ask each team to decide how many chalakim, how many segments there are for each word, and put them into piles by the number. All the ones that they think have 1 chelak go in one pile, 2 chalakim in a second pile, and so on. Create a chart like this on the board and ask each group to count the number of words in each pile and to record that number on the board. So if there are 2 words with 2 chelakim, group 1 is going to write a 2 under the 2 column. It might look like this the first time after students have filled it in. I have to tell you, there is usually not consensus the first time through. But when everybody gets it, all the answers should be the same. Don't just do this once. You should repeat the activity the next few times you meet, and then again in the future. And when children have trouble with their decoding or reading, you now have a new strategy. Don't do this just once. You should repeat the activity the next few times you meet, and then do it again in the future. When students have trouble with their reading, you now have a new strategy. You can ask them to stop and divide the word into chalakim, into segments. And note that you could do this without ever asking children to read the word. Just have them divide it up, because even without reading, this technique helps students focus on the micro, on the letters, and the vowel signs. So cue up those visual cues and see some success. I hope you'll post some of your experiments on Facebook to let us know how things went.